Mrs May is back in London and oh dear, you can hardly describe it as being a great success. No deal has at this stage been agreed. We kick that forwards to the next big EU summit on the 13th and 14th of December. What's been agreed from the British side? Well, the Prime Minister has conceded the principle that the transition period could go on for a further year, that is until the end of 2021. And of course, into the bargain, that means that we'll be handing over approximately another £20 billion. Here was Mrs May during her press conference asked about this possible extension to the transition period.
Well, first of all, let me address this issue that you've raised about the potential extension, as you recall, to the transition or the implementation period. This is an idea that has been around before. I've been asked about it in the potential for an extension in the House of Commons previously. I've always been very clear that we negotiated an implementation period with the EU, and we negotiated that that implementation period would end at the end of December 2020. What has now emerged is the idea that an option to extend the implementation period could be a further solution to this issue of the backstop in Northern Ireland. What we are not doing, we are not standing here proposing an extension to the implementation period.
Oh, really?
What we are doing is working to ensure we have a solution to the backstop issue in Northern Ireland that enables us to, which is currently a blockage to completing the deal, that enables us to get on with completing a deal that delivers on the vote of the British people and is good for the future of the UK.
Well, there was our leader, folks, jumbling and stumbling. Later on, she said, oh, well, it may be just for a few months. Well, OK, yeah, 12 of them. Mr Jean-Claude Juncker, the President of the European Commission, was somewhat clearer.
This prolongation of the transitional period probably will happen. That's a good idea. It's not the best idea the two of us we had, but I think that this is giving us some room to prepare the future relation in the best way possible.
No, he wasn't hanging out the bunting, but you can tell he's pretty pleased. It's happening, folks. We've agreed the principle. We will be in this transition, if Mrs May stays as leader, until the end of 2021. Here was Jacob Rees-Mogg, chairman of the European Research Group, responding.
It's a poorly thought through idea that it takes us into the next multi-annual financial framework, and that raises the issue of there being very substantial costs, because the next framework will be determined without our veto, and therefore it's unlikely that we would maintain our rebate. So it could be a very expensive thing to do. It's unknown as to whether this had approval from the Cabinet when it met earlier in the week to make this proposition. But it also doesn't solve the issue of the backstop, because the backstop would remain, as far as one can tell, at the end of this additional transition. So it seems to me to be a rather poor attempt at kicking the can down the road.
Well, that was Jacob Rees-Mogg. I think it's much worse than that. You see, I've always been opposed to the idea of a transition period at all. Why? Because the transition period was Article 50. That's what it was designed for in the treaties, to have a 2-year period during which you sort everything out. I always feared it would slip. To accept the principle that it goes to the end of 2021, well, that takes us up to, within a couple of months, of the next general election. Folks, I promise you, if we stick with this course, the transition period will go on until the next general election, and we could get a government next time round that says, do you know what? We're just going to stay in the customs union forever, and Brexit simply would not be delivered. What I also fear is there'll now be a 3-year period during which we'll be rule takers without any say at all. And just you watch Mr Blair and Mr Major and everybody else. They're going to be straight in there saying, look, logically what we now need to do is suspend Article 50 as well and make sure that we maintain our members of the European Parliament and our European Commissioner during that 3-year period. This is all, if you believe in Brexit, I think very bad news. And frankly, with what's been agreed, with her reaction to it, with the derision and laughter that I was met with as a British person, saying, ha, you're not going to get Brexit, are you? I think what I witnessed here in Brussels was an act of national humiliation. That is how I feel about it. But let me ask you, Do you think it's acceptable for an extension to this transition period to be put into place? And if you think, Nigel, actually, we need to do this, we need longer, the Prime Minister is right, if it helps a smooth departure, it makes sense, then call 0345 6060 973. If, like me, you're disgusted by it, text to 84850. Or maybe you feel sorry for Mrs. May because she's got such a tough job to do, in which case tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course Facebookers. You can watch us live and you can comment there too. Jeremy from Harrow is my first caller of the evening. Jeremy, are you happy that we're going to extend this transition by up to a year or more?
I'm incandescent, actually, Nigel. I think it's absolutely outrageous. We voted Article 50, as you said, was the transition period.
Yep.
We've now, in our 2 years down the line, have been kicking the can down. There is a conspiracy, and there is no other word for it, between the likes of Mr. Blair and Mr. Major, Mr. Clegg, and the Commission to keep our money. Let's face it, it's to keep our money, because otherwise the whole lot sinks. And to punish us, to make it so difficult that no other country would contemplate triggering Article 50. That's all there is. And as for this Irish backstop nonsense, we've had an open border between North and Southern Ireland since the early 1920s. And as you've said before, there are different customs arrangements and prices and tariffs and taxes between the two sides. So there's been no... So this is an absolute nonsense. We're being fed a lie. And then we have the people saying, we didn't know what we were voting for. I'll tell you what I voted for, and I'm saying it's what you voted for and others did. We voted to take our country back. We voted for our parliament to be the government. And this is a question I would like to throw open to any one of these Remainiacs, Mr. Clegg and all the other traitors, and they are traitors.
Strong words, Jeremy, strong words.
It's strong. I could say stronger. Why do you want us ruled by an unelected, unaccountable, unremovable, hostile, corrupt,
because it's the European dream, Jeremy. You're not getting with the project.
No.
Jeremy, thank you. Jeremy,
I want a reason.
Jeremy in Harrow is incandescent. I'm going to go to Scotland, to Elgin, to speak to Mark, who's a new caller to the show. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, Nigel. Thanks for having me.
Not a bit. So do you welcome a year's extra transition?
No, absolutely not. I don't accept it at all. I think that what's going on here is the intention is to prevaricate, to delay the process of Brexit in the hope that sooner or later the whole thing can be arrested and overturned, and that, frankly, we'll never leave the European Union. I think that's the ultimate intention.
Yeah, there may be one other, Mark. So picture this. It was about 10 to 2. I'd been up at the council all morning doing a lot of interviews. I needed some breathing space, went for lunch, sat down, ordered a drink, and a chap on the next table came over. He said, Nigel, I must introduce myself. I'm the former Norwegian ambassador to the European Union. He said, I can see what's happening here with all the different delays, with opting in to stay part of the customs union for years to come. He said, you're headed for a Norway-style exit. And that would mean, Mark, whilst we might get our fish back in Scotland, which would be good, it would mean being tied to nearly all European Union rules, continuing to pay a big sum of money, and having pretty much open borders. And that was his guess of where we're going.
Yeah, but for me, that's singularly unacceptable. I mean, essentially what has to happen at the moment, in my view, and I think the pressure's growing by the day on this, is that Theresa May has to be removed as the Prime Minister.
I couldn't agree more.
I think what baffles me most about this is that currently there are 315 Conservative MPs in the House of Commons, and yet it simply needs just 48 of them to trigger a change of leadership. What I really don't get, given the amount of I think fury that now exists in much of society about this moment, is what are the other 267 Conservative MPs thinking?
Well, don't forget, Mark, about 120 of them are on the payroll, OK? So for them to come out against the Prime Minister means resigning their job and losing money. But most of them, I agree with you, they're all afraid to be seen to be the one wielding the knife. I just don't get it. Mark, thank you. On Twitter, Theresa May and her aides are performing a feet-dragging operation, and if if people can't see through it, they are dumb, says James. Nigel, enough really is enough. May can't deliver what we want, and this latest setback is infuriating. Walk away now with WTO rules, says Steve in the Cotswolds. Can someone explain to me how extending the implementation period fixes the Northern Ireland border problem? She's an idiot, Nigel, says Peter in Lancashire. It doesn't solve anything. She accepted this principle of the backstop, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that later on in the programme. But I want to get more of your voices first. I'm going to Tamworth to speak to Gary. Good evening, Gary.
Evening, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, so what do you think?
I've been to the book.
Go on.
I'm 62 years old, and I've been to the bookies today, and I've asked him if he'll give me odds on whether I'll still be alive when we get Brexit.
Dear.
Because I think we're having a never exit.
So
It's
do you think...
absolutely disgraceful.
Well, can I ask you, Gary, do you think the Prime Minister is in this mess because she's incompetent, or do you think it's deliberate?
I think it's deliberate. She's a Remainer. Michel Barnier has had more meetings with Remainers than he has had with Brexiters.
Yes.
That must tell everybody something.
Including Tony Blair last week, Gary. Including Tony Blair last week, Gary. Gary, I'm going to move on. So far, you seem to be ranging from upset, depressed to incandescent. Surely somebody must think it's a good idea to extend this period. What does Paul in Barking make of it?
Hello, Nigel. Evenings here. Basically, what you just mentioned there, Nigel, that's basically what she's up to. She wants to do a Brexit in name only till the 2022 election. And if she runs again as the Tory leader, they're going to lose to Corbyn. You've got to remember, Nigel, thank God you mentioned it tonight. You mentioned about, is it done on deliberate or incompetent? You have to understand, this is not incompetence. This is done on purpose. She was the establishment pick from the day one. It led to Theresa May. This was the fallback plan, to have Theresa May as Tory leader. And from day one, with Ollie Robbins in the background, civil service, to overturn the Brexit result. This is going to be proven from day one. She's showing herself here, Nigel. She wants to overturn the election.
She is certainly betraying Brexit in a dramatic way. When David Davis wrote last week that if she stuck to this course, it would have dire consequences for the Conservative Party at the next election, you think he was right, yeah?
Listen, Nigel, she has no care for her Tory colleagues. If she had to care for her Tory colleagues, she'd leave now. This is the order. Her Tory colleagues are nothing. Her party means nothing. It's a beloved EU. That's all she cares about. If her Tory colleagues lose 50 seats the next election, she does not care.
I don't know about that, Paul. I tell you what, she cares about her career and she cares about staying as Prime Minister. That I do know. And up until now, folks, she has certainly had stickability. You can admire her for that. Whether she can survive this remains to be seen. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
The Prime Minister's updated reporters in Brussels saying she's convinced she will secure a good deal for the UK with the EU over Brexit, despite a few but considerable disagreements. The US Secretary of State says he's told Saudi Arabia's rulers that America takes very seriously the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi from their consulate in Istanbul. A husband and wife from South Wales have been jailed for a total of 36 years for grooming and raping teenage girls. LBC weather staying dry in most places tonight, but feeling much colder across rural parts, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's stop-start on the M11 northbound from Junction 4 at the North Circular to Junction 6 for the M25 after an accident earlier on. All the lanes are open again. Anti-clockwise on the M25, there are queues from Junction 9 for Leatherhead to Junction 7 for the M23 after a lorry broke down earlier on. On the M25 clockwise, there are queues from Junction 25 for Enfield to Junction 26 for Waltham Abbey after a lorry broke down earlier. In East Ham, High Street South is partly blocked both ways because of an accident at Charlemont Road. And on the rails, Gatwick Express services are suspended between Brighton and Gatwick airports after a person was hit by a train. It means Southern and Thameslink are running a replacement bus between Haywards Heath and Brighton.
This is LBC.
Word in the woods is that 3 little pigs are looking to sell their homes quick. They seem to be in a spot of bother with the big bad wolf called Rick.
Come out, little piggies.
So they spoke to the friendly team at Property Rescue, who can offer a guaranteed sale in as little as 48 hours at a fair price and a cash advance if you need one. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kings and queens, welcome to your Virgin Atlantic flight. The seatbelt sign is off and the show has started. It's always sunny above the clouds. We're in a different world. We're tickling the stratosphere. We're flying at 30,000 feet. I'll be your host, and if you need anything, bing bong me. Now please, sit back and relax, or sit forward and make an origami penguin. It's up to you. Get ready to depart the everyday. Why? Because you're flying with Virgin Atlantic.
So I often struggled at school. Once, when we had a maths test, I looked around the room and everyone was just doing it. And I couldn't. I felt stupid. And I began to cry. But then my teacher, she came over to me and said, it might look like one big problem, but it's just a handful of small ones. And you can deal with that. I hear her voice in my head for every problem that I face to this day.
Teaching. Every lesson shapes a life. Search Get Into Teaching.
Have you ever told a little white lie when your doctor asks how much alcohol you drink? It's easy to kid ourselves about our drinking. But the truth is, drinking alcohol most nights can be bad for your health. I mean, did you know alcohol causes 1 in 13 cases of breast cancer? And the more you have, the greater the risk. Drinking less by having more drink-free days can help reduce the risk of developing breast cancer. Remember, there's only one you. So be more drink-aware. See how at drinkfreedays.co.uk.
The high-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
This month, all kitchens are half price with a free oven hob and extractor. Book your free home design visit today at roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Offer ends soon. Minimum spend applies.
Apparently, there are still some people who say they won't apply for an Ocean credit card. That's amazing, because there's a credit limit of up to £1,500. Text so you keep control of your spending, and you can see if you'll be accepted before you apply at checkocean.co.uk without affecting your credit rating. But I know the real reason people say they won't apply, because they've already got one. To apply for an Ocean credit card, go to checkocean.co.uk. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One is the exclusive lender. 39.9% APR representative variable.
Leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Another year of transition, possibly up to the next general election. Another £20 billion we'll hand over to the European Union. Who knows how much of that we may get back. And yesterday, an open letter was written to the Prime Minister by David Davis, Ian Duncan-Smith, Boris Johnson, Owen Paterson, Priti Patel and Jacob Rees-Mogg. In it, they said, we were all elected on a manifesto to gain full independence by leaving the customs union and the single market. It is crucial we deliver on those promises. Talk of a Northern Irish backstop goes against our status as a sovereign nation state. We urge you not to engage in a show of resistance and a choreographed argument followed by surrender and collapse into some version of the backstop or checkers. Folks, she ignored you completely yesterday. And that's exactly what she'll do at the December summit. She will sign up to something probably even worse than we've seen so far. So can I ask you all a question? When will you stop urging the Prime Minister to change direction? It's clear she won't. When will you actually have the guts to stand up and say, in the name of God, go, you are a disaster as Prime Minister and you are betraying Brexit? So far, they can't even muster 48 letters. It's a mystery to me. Now, Chris takes a different view on text and he says, you know Brexit isn't deliverable. Why do you persist in winding up the manipulated levers? Chris, there's no problem with Brexit. Brexit is not the problem. The Prime Minister is, and it's perfectly deliverable. It's all about political will. Let's go to Steve in Sturberton. Steve, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Up until today, I had thought that Theresa May could have played a little bit of a blinder because, you know, it was people from all parties that voted for Brexit. So she could have said, this isn't about party lines. This is about delivering for the people that voted. And then once we leave, to please the Remainers, we could have set up a few things just to make everybody happy. And then she comes out with this. And it just makes me think now, well, they're just trying to let it run to a general election. Corbyn will probably they'll sneak in a Remain in the EU option somewhere into their manifesto, and that's what they'll really push for. But I think there might be another way of dealing with it, which I haven't heard anybody explore. Well, we are supposed to be a self-governing nation, like the people. We are elect members of our own community into the House of Commons, and we govern our own, we make our own laws. But we have something called, sorry, I've got a ferret licking my ear. We have
Ferret.
something called the wet ferret. Yeah, little
we had a
toto.
pig the other day on the show, but Steve, carry on, please.
Right. Anyway, yeah. So, where was I? We elect people to. We've got a Westminster bubble, a political class, and the political elite. So they're not us. So the question remains: do they represent us? Well, if they are aligned to an external corporate bureaucracy, then they place themselves in breach of democracy. Because what they've done is they've placed self-governing sovereign people into a state of subservience within a corporate...
So what do we do about it, Steve? Steve, I agree with that analysis.
Sue them for breach of trust.
Oh, I tell you what, if you think we're going to win through legal recourse, we're not, Steve.
They've got no choice because we are common law. We are the sovereign. They have no defence against it. They are there to serve us.
Good luck with it. My experience is the place you've got to kick them hard is in the ballot box. That's my experience of it. Steve, I thank you for your call. Pete in Wantage says, today is the day. Today is the red line day. Today is the day that it's 100% obvious that we are being sold down the river, although I've thought that for some months. Stall, stall, stall. Eventually, we'll all get so sick of it, we'll say, let's just stay in. Pete, I do think today is a big, important day in all of this. I'm going to go to Jane, who's calling from Clapham. Good evening, Jane.
Hello, Nigel. I haven't spoken to you before. Yes, today is the day. It is clear it's all about delay and betray. That's it. We need to just settle all this on March the 29th. We don't need a transition period. We just say it is settled March the 29th. We're not going to give you any more money. We shall honour our commitments and we will oversee how our money is spent. And then we can get on with the job of repairing our country and in turn repairing our world, which is just vital.
Jane, I'd love to see all of that being done, but the truth of it is that is not going to happen with this Prime Minister. So do you agree with me that it's about time that David Davis and Jacob Rees-Mogg and all the others stood up and said, for goodness sake, go, Mrs May, you're a disaster?
Oh, better than that. She should realise that she can't do the job and she should just resign.
Well, I don't think she will, Jane. But, Jane, let's see what happens. Thank you very much indeed for your call. On Twitter, I get, if it's a no deal, the Tories will be wiped out, says Doug. Doug, equally, I would say to you that if it's a sellout deal, the Tories equally will get, in my view, definitely get wiped out. Outrageous betrayal of democracy. I am hopping mad. What a sellout. My wife and I will never vote Conservative again while she is PM, says Henry from Bodmin. Henry, you are not alone, but Steve takes a different view on Facebook and says, we need to stay in the EU. It's the only solution. Really, Steve? This island of ours that has been one of the most amazing, phenomenal countries in the whole history of mankind, and you're telling us the only solution is to be governed by Mr. Juncker and this bunch of gangsters over here? I don't believe it. Phil is a new caller from Scarborough. Good evening, Phil.
Good evening, Nigel. I just wanted to really call in. I'm a Remainer,
yes.
But I wanted to ask you, we've got an extension now to get the Brexit deal because that's what we will be leaving. What it is, why are you so worried when you've won the referendum? Why are you so worried that just extending so we can get the correct Brexit deal, why is it making you so nervous? Because every night I listen to you seem to get more and more nervous.
Yes, I do, because week by week the betrayal gets worse, Phil, and you can see exactly what's happening here. This extension to the end of 2021 will effectively now be until the next general election, and we could get somebody elected that frankly overturns the whole thing, keeps us in perpetuity in the customs union. No wonder that Norwegian former ambassador today said to me, you're headed for a form of EEA membership.
Yeah, but why don't you hold your nerve and think, no, Brexit, we want to get the right Brexit, not the Brexit at any cost, but the right Brexit, because that's what the people voted for. Surely you should be saying, stick
Phil,
with it, let's get the right
Phil,
Brexit and let's
tell you
do
what,
the right thing.
No, I listen, I absolutely understand the point you're making. Let me say this to you. If I believe sincerely in her heart that Theresa May believed in Brexit, then I would say, fine, do what's right. Basically, the truth of it is, Phil, she is a Remainer, and she's leading us up the garden path and taking us to a place where we will not get a Brexit that is recognisable. Phil, I thank you for your point. Sandra says, does Theresa May really think that she will ever get voted in again? Well, maybe she'll just do a runner, Sandra, and leave her own party to collapse next time round. I don't know. Sally says, surely no deal now would be seriously better than this Chequers deal. Sally, no deal is better than a bad deal, and that applies in almost every walk of life, including this. Al is calling from Manchester, yet another new caller to this show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Nigel. First time to speak to you, like you said there. Yeah, totally agree with you. Always have done. Voted for yourself in Brexit for the UKIP party this time after voting Tory for years. And I tell you what, best thing I've done. I think we should get right out. I think we've got this Article 50 in place. It should be honoured. I think anyone who speaks up and backs it and says that we've got to have a transition period, a traitors, the names should be put down. Everybody should know who they are. And I think this Oily Bobbins who's advising her, I think he should be investigated because he's behind a lot of it.
Well, there's no point investigating the civil service, Al, because I think probably about 99% of them want to see Brexit overturned, so there's no need for an investigation.
They don't belong there. They shouldn't be there at all. I think she's like you say, traitor May.
Well, it's a strong word.
It actually suits her, that name.
But Al, it's also worth pointing out, as you're from Manchester, which is a big Labour stronghold, that Labour are doing the same thing too, aren't they? Labour are going against their manifesto. Labour are going against all the things Jeremy Corbyn said since the referendum. And there are 5 million people who voted Brexit who are Labour voters. So it's actually both parties doing it. Al, I'm going to move on. I'm going to move on. I've got so many of you want to call, and so many of you new callers too. I'm off to Barnsley to speak to Wendy, a new caller. Good evening, Wendy.
Good evening, Nigel.
So, are you happy with this year's extension?
I am not. I'm absolutely fuming. I think it's about time that the Brexiteers, the MPs, woke up and realised she's not going to listen to reasoning. She has to go.
Okay, well, Wendy, give a message, give a quick message to Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg. What do they need to do?
They need to get the letters in, and at least if they try to bring her down and they don't, they've gone down fighting. Because we've got nobody else that's listening to us. My MP is Jan Jarvis. I've emailed him several times. It's just a waste of time. And even Labour's gone back on the manifesto.
Absolutely. Wendy, I've got to go. Folks, listen to Wendy in Barnsley. She's not alone. There are many millions who feel the way she does today. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC, and it's now 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The Democratic Unionists say any extension to the Brexit transition period would not solve the negotiating problems over the Irish border. It's after the EU suggested a readiness to lengthen the proposed 21-month interim timescale designed to ease the UK and EU into a new relationship. The US and UK have become the latest countries to withdraw their ministers from a major Saudi investment conference following the suspected murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul. The International Trade Secretary Liam Fox says the time is not right now to participate. A husband and wife from South Wales have been jailed for a total of 36 years for grooming and raping teenage girls. Peter and Avril Griffiths, who are both in their 60s and from Barry, were found guilty of assaulting 3 female victims between 1978 and 93. LBC weather staying dry in most places tonight, but feeling much colder across parts of rural England and Wales, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC at the weekend. Andrew Castle.
Some wealthy people, individuals, are making their own plans to disappear, and they'll take their money with them. You may not care whether the wealthy go. Well, go then. If you don't want to pay your fair share, well, I know, but they're frictionless. They can go. They have that choice, and they take their money and their businesses with them.
Leading Britain's conversation. Andrew Castle. Saturday and Sunday mornings from 7 on LBC.
This Stoptober, remember you're not alone when you quit smoking. Many people have done it before, like Justin.
Well, the main motivation for me was probably kids, and I was out of breath all the time. Stairs were a nightmare, even walking. And I'd been to the doctor several times and I tried the gum, and the only thing that got me off it completely was moving to vaping. It's made a massive difference.
Quitting smoking is easier with the right support. Find the right support for you with Stoptober's free online personal quit plan. Go to lbc.co.uk.
The world's biggest recorded dog stood at 3 feet 8 inches tall. Imagine him bounding up to you. For a pooch, that's big. But it's not Euro Millions big. This Friday, it's a whopping £42 million jackpot. Euromillions. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Is your money working as hard as you do? Think about it. While you're grafting away, is your money working too? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. Wealthify is the smart, easy way to start investing. Just say how you want to invest. Cautious, adventurous, somewhere in between? And let Wealthify do the rest. Then keep track of your money on the app. Easy. Isn't it time for you to Wealthify? Download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
I start with an O. I end with a Y. I am the second biggest preventable cause of cancer. What am I? Did you guess it? The biggest preventable cause of cancer after smoking is obesity. Search Cancer Research UK Obesity for the facts.
Hey, you're home. How's the cold been?
Actually, after a day of meetings, working through lunch, running a full press conference, and a delayed train home, it wasn't that bad.
Wow.
I know. I had Lemsip by my side.
When cold, flu and chesty cough strikes, keep Lemsip Max all-in-one by your side. There's nothing faster or stronger. Lemsip, there for you. Contains paracetamol. Always read the label.
I'm a great white shark and I'm come to eat your car.
Oh no, please don't eat me.
I'm come to get you.
Invest time playing with the kids, as Money Farm is here to look after your other life investments. From pensions to ISAs and more, we offer investment advice and manage everything on your behalf. You only need 10 minutes to get set up. You have one life. Invest wisely. Moneyfarm.com. Your capital is at risk. Money Farm is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.
It's the October savings event at Oak Furnitureland. So get a great new look for your home, all in solid hardwood and at prices you'll love. It's delivered free and guaranteed to arrive by Christmas. So shop now at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you. Ends Sunday.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Theresa May accepts that we're going to have a further year of transition to the end of 2021. I'm asking, do you think that's acceptable? I think it's wholly unacceptable. I think today was the day when any pretensions any of you had that Theresa May wants to deliver a genuine Brexit, surely they must all be over now. Now, we talked the other day about Saudi Arabia, about the total disappearance of Jamal Khashoggi, and about perhaps the fact that occasionally we may crack down hard on Russia when they do bad things, but we don't tend to with Saudi Arabia because of money. But we do learn today that the Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh, which is this big investment conference and trade conference taking place later this month, known as the Davos of the Desert, and we have learned that International Trade Secretary Liam Fox is pulling out of that. I just thought worth following up on that debate we had the other day. And the Belfast Telegraph are reporting, a news source at RTE, the Irish broadcaster, saying that Theresa May met the Irish Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, and she agreed with him that if there is a no-deal Brexit, the backstop would be permanent, meaning that Northern Ireland would stay permanently in the customs union, regardless what the rest of the country did. Let's see how that report develops. Let's see if that's absolutely 100% true. If it is, I simply can't see how the 10 DUP MPs can go on supporting this government. Back to the question, do you find this further year acceptable? By March 2019, we would have had 2 years and 9 months of transition. Let's have a vote on the deal, but only those that voted leave should get a vote. Jason in Poplar, it doesn't work like that. Rees-Mogg and David Davis are cowards. They talk the talk, but they can't walk the walk. If they think Brexit is so wonderful, why don't they take over? Ford, it seems they want to take over. Boris certainly wants to take over, and yet all they do is urge the Prime Minister to change direction. Perhaps it's time to change the Prime Minister. Rick is a new caller from Kingston upon Thames. Good evening, Rick.
Hi, Nigel. Nigel, I'm just calling to say I think your callers, you, David Davis, are being a little bit harsh with Theresa May.
Okay.
And Leavers haven't been able to answer this simple question, and it's just a yes or no question. Do you want freedom of movement in the island of Ireland?
Yes, we've had it for 100 years, and we're happy to continue.
Right. So, do you want freedom of movement with the EU?
No. But Ireland,
So
of course,
is
is not
part
part
of
of
the
the Schengen. But it's not part of the Schengen zone. If it was part of the Schengen zone, we would have a major problem, and I accept that. But they're not, mercifully, part of Schengen. I don't see that causing us any trouble at all.
But why is there not trouble? Because goods and people are going to be moving freely across the island of Ireland, but goods and people cannot move freely across the EU, and Ireland is part of the EU. So I just don't understand how this conundrum can be solved, and no one has given me...
We've just answered your question. I mean, when it comes to the Irish border, Rick, this has been put up as an insoluble problem. And the truth of the matter is, we operate the Irish border now. There are huge differences between Northern Ireland and the Republic now in terms of tax and currency, excise duties and many things. And this is just one more dimension. Honestly, if you say a problem's insoluble, well, that's one approach. The other is to say, let's solve it.
Yeah, okay, so I'm not saying it's insoluble, but I'm saying you need time, right? You cannot just say, I'm going to get it done by March the 29th and 2 years later. It's not that easy. And if people think that it's that easy, why don't they come up with some...
Well, it depends what we're aiming at, Rick. I mean, if we were aiming at a simple free trade deal, then it is easy because we have exactly the same level of regulations right now as the rest of the European Union. It could be done very quickly. Rick, I take your point about the border, but Ireland is very much an exception with this. Richard is calling from Sidcup. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Nigel. It's just become completely obvious now that there's a government within a government. Some of it stretches over to the Channel and some of it stretches back over to the Irish Sea. But with us being bypassed in the middle between the political elites on either side, with Ireland, with Leo Varadkar, who's obviously just an EU shill, and the globalists at the EU. And I'm sick of hearing Jacob Rees-Mogg parrot the same old rubbish, the same old nonsense, the jolly good egg, the party man, party before country. He helped instigate this. He got the troops marching. I saw him on your trip to Torquay the other day, rallying the flags and getting everybody to sing along. And what is he doing? Nothing. And if he thinks he's going to patch up the Tory party after this mess, if him and David Davis and Boris Johnson think that they're going to clear up this rubbish and then sell themselves back to the electorate when all this has been absolutely rubbished and betrayed, this Brexit vote, that the first real democratic choice this country's been able to make for God knows how long, if they think they're going to patch this up, honestly, they are.
I think you're sending a very clear message. Jacob Rees-Mogg, Richard in Sidcup says, put party before country. That's right, Richard, isn't it?
Right, yeah, and I think the public should start listening to people like Gerard Batten now.
Right, OK, we'll see. You never know. They may well do that. Stephen in Lanarkshire is a new caller to the show. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Nigel. Nice to talk to you. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty blooming angry. And Stephen, I meant what I said at the top of the hour. I thought, as I left that summit last night, I couldn't wait to leave the room. It was almost it was embarrassing to be British. We were witnessing a national humiliation.
I think you're being melodramatic.
All right. So, okay, well, Stephen, please tell me that what she's achieved. What she's achieved
is irrelevant.
As
it stands, we're not getting there because we need to agree something on the backstop, and we don't have that solution yet.
Well, the backstop was designed for there to be no solution. That's the point. That was where Barnier was very clever. He tricked the Prime Minister, Stephen, into signing up for it. He won't accept any answer that's given, and it was all done to make sure the UK stayed within the European Union's regulatory framework, because the one thing Barnier did not want was for us to become competitive.
You might say that, but you have inadvertently said that the Irish problem's insoluble.
Well, I haven't said it's insoluble. I believe it's...
You just defined it as insoluble there.
No, I am saying that Monsieur Barnier...
It was designed to be insoluble.
It was designed to be, yes.
Insoluble.
It was designed to be insoluble, and it certainly isn't. Of that, well, of course it isn't. Stephen, thank you. Another new caller is Paul from Waltham Cross. Paul, what do you make of this one-year extension?
Well, in a lot of respects, it is completely wrong. It's against the will of the people.
Right.
But where you're actually defending certain elements That's also wrong.
What am I defending, Paul?
What is you're defending every time somebody's mentioned the word treason? It isn't treason. It's high treason.
Okay, I'm being too soft, Paul, am I?
Yes, you are. Because
All
at
right.
the end of the day, you praise your friends in Europe when you say that they're friendly and all the rest of it. They are not friendly to this country.
Hang on, Paul.
Our industry has
Paul,
been
can I just stop you a second, right? What I've always said is that I respect the European peoples and I respect European nations. What I do not respect are the unelected bureaucrats in the European Commission that run Europe. They are a bunch of gangsters, all right? So I'm drawing, Paul, a distinction between Europe and the European Union.
Yeah, but you also defend them, but it doesn't matter.
I don't.
Right?
I don't. I've never defended them, Paul. I've never voted for honestly.
Okay, all right, I'm aware of that, right? But our industries have been decimated. All our factories, all our industries have been shipped abroad via decree by Brussels. Our industries relying on next day delivery has been all set up so we cannot defend ourselves. All our munitions, our arms industries are gone. All sold out.
Paul, do you believe, Paul, that a true Brexit can help us solve many of those problems?
By reindustrialising the country, by shutting ourselves away from Europe and their bureaucratic dictatorship. Yes.
Okay. Paul, thank you. I'm going to move on. We got there in the end. Europe and the European Union, folks, are two very different things. This mob here think they are Europe. I don't believe they are at all. What does Ben in Brighton make of today's decision?
Nigel, brilliant.
Hello,
Thank you. I was just listening to you just before the 6:30 news.
Yes.
And you said that what you were concerned about is that Mrs May is kicking this down the path for so long that we might end up with another election.
Yes.
And then, God forbid, we could have a government elected that wanted to keep us in the EU.
By trickery, yes.
And I wondered what you call that process.
They are. I think there is a deliberate attempt.
Perhaps?
The point. Democracy would be, but democracy would be delivering. Democracy would be delivering the Brexit result. There is a willful attempt here, Ben, to stop us leaving the European Union. That's the point I'm making.
Okay, but if you are fearful that the majority of people would vote for a government that kept us in it, that is democracy.
But no, it's not, Ben, because and as was said by a caller on this show earlier, the Labour Party could write it in somewhere in the small print, and actually we'd vote in a general election, not on this great constitutional question, but on health or defence or whatever other issues it is. Ben, I do take the point about democracy. I just fear this issue kind of getting lost in a general election, and the greatest exercise ever in democracy in our nation not being delivered. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Theresa May says she's convinced she will secure a good deal for the UK with the EU over Brexit, despite a few but considerable disagreements over the Irish border and a possible transition period extension. The US and UK have become the latest countries to withdraw their ministers from a major Saudi investment conference following the suspected murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. A husband and wife from South Wales have been jailed for a total of 36 years for grooming and raping teenage girls. LBC weather staying dry in most places tonight, but feeling colder across rural parts, a low of 4 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's stop-start on the M11 northbound from Junction 4 at the North Circular to Junction 6 for the M25 after an accident earlier. All the lanes are open again. There are queues in Basildon on the A13. Lanes closed in both directions because of emergency repairs between the Five Bells interchange and the Stamford La Hope turn-off. In East Ham, High Street South is partly blocked both ways because of an accident at Sholmont Road. At Tower Hill, the approach to Tower Bridge southbound is partly blocked because a taxi is broken down. And on the rails, Gatwick Express services are suspended between Brighton and Gatwick Airport after a person was hit by a train. It means Southern and Thameslink are running a replacement bus between Haywards Heath and Brighton.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
At 8, it's the BT Business Hour. At 9, Anjem Chowdhury. Should we change the law to enable the authorities to keep people in prison who don't accept their guilt?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Strong relationships and great communication are key for any business to keep moving forward. BT is here to help you maintain both. As the UK's most popular fibre network, we power most of the FTSE 350, as well as emergency services, schools and hospitals. Find out more and enter to win a state-of-the-art tablet computer, headphones and an Amazon Echo Plus at lbc.co.uk. BT, helping business relationships stay on track. There's a great range of sofas at Oak Furnitureland. Yep, that's right, sofas at Oak Furnitureland. Whatever style you want, fabric, leather, recliner or corner. There's solid hardwood used in the frame and 7-day fast delivery on most sofas. So get an amazing new look for your home this Christmas at prices you just won't expect. So shop now at Oak Furnitureland. There's a store near you. Great sofas, great prices. No compromise.
If you're collecting your prescription, don't assume you can claim it for free. Not all benefits entitle you to free prescriptions. And if you claim when you're not entitled, you could face a penalty charge of up to £100. Thankfully, there's a simple way to find out if you should be paying. Search Check Before You Tick online and use our eligibility checker to find out if your benefits mean you can claim for free. Or you can ask your pharmacy team. So always remember to check before you tick. This was brought to you by the NHS.
Introducing the EDF Energy Smart Home Store. Ah, the joys of modern living. Smart lights. Turn them up or down, pink or purple using only your phone. Smart thermostats. Cozy up the house on the way home. Smart plugs. Check the irons off wherever you are. And Alexa with the Amazon Echo. Take your first step towards a smarter home. With EDF Energy's helpful advice and exclusive deals, it couldn't be easier. Smart devices at smart prices. Search EDF Energy Smart Home Store.
Finance for Business is the finance broker you can depend on. Their team of professionals can help you secure bridging finance, development finance, and commercial mortgages. Working with hundreds of lenders, they'll help you select the right solution for your project and stay from the start to the end and beyond. Finance for Business, because broking is the new banking. Visit awardwinningfinance.com.
Clear a house, clear an office, clear a little bit, or clear loads of it. With Clearabee, getting rid of rubbish is quick, easy and affordable. Choose our man and van rubbish removal service and we'll come and clear almost any rubbish from almost anywhere. Because whatever you want rid of, there's a Clearabee man in a Clearabee van who can do it professionally and legally. Book now at clearabee.co.uk.
Clear rubbish easily. Clearabee.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
A year's extension to the transition period, and Mrs May says she's buying time to make sure we get the right deal. I don't see it like that. I see kicking this can down the road towards the next general election, the next argument following closely on, which is, oh, well, of course, we'll need some MEPs again, won't we? Because we'll have 3 years where we wouldn't want to be a rule taker without having a say. Probably another European commissioner. The establishment want to keep us in. Sadly, Mrs May is part of that. That's what I believe. Gillian in Darlington says what they put in their manifestos means nothing. Look at what happened at the last election. Gillian, I genuinely worry that what is happening right now to the faith and trust that people in our country have in the entire democratic process. This is not just the Conservative Party turning their backs and betraying Brexit. Labour are doing it as well. Martin is a new caller from Bromley. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Nigel.
So how do you feel about this further year?
I don't think any of us would think that Theresa May is doing it as we would hope, but who do we put there that would make a difference? Boris, Gove, Davis, you know them. Who would you put there?
All right, Martin, can I just say this to you? Brexit was an instruction from the people to turn around the ship of state by 180 degrees and to start sailing in a different direction. And to perform a big task like that, you've got to believe in it. This woman doesn't believe in it, Martin. So I would answer that by saying anybody who's got a bit of courage, got a bit of leadership, and knows where they want to take the country, anybody would do it better, in my view. Martin, you'd probably do it better.
Their career would probably be over, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, why are they all
And you
so...
should put your career on the line if you believe in it.
I think on something as important as this, the answer to that is a big yes. I think the well-being of your career and your party don't matter a damn compared to this major historic change. Who do you think, Martin, might do a better job?
Honestly, I think they're all going to wait because none of them want to be there now. And then depending on how it goes, they'll step forward once it goes whichever way it's going to go because that's what you do. You don't come in now.
Avoid the hot seat at a very difficult time.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Yeah, jolly good job back in 1940. One or two folk thought differently, isn't it, really? Otherwise, goodness knows where we'd be.
Can I ask a question on the trade deal? This is one thing that I'm never quite sure on the trade deal.
Go on.
Can we, if Chequers was to go through, can we do our own trade deals with Chequers? Because it seems to never get answered.
Right. Chequers has got worse since Chequers. It's now Chequers minus, because what we were about to sign up to this week was to stay in the customs union during at least that transition period. And that would mean a big no, Martin. No, no, no. The Labour Party now accept that principle. I heard Keir Starmer say, oh, it's far better to do these trade deals with Europe, meaning they do it for us. If you're in the customs union, Martin, you can't make your own trade deals. Not acceptable. Thank you very much indeed for your call. Howard on Facebook says, Italy will leave before us at this rate. Well, Howard, yesterday, the European Commission rejected the Italian budget. The Italian budget deficit was put in for the year at 2.4%, and the Commission have said no. An elected government being told by an unelected bureaucracy that they will have to change their budget. That's how it works here. You may like the European Union, but please don't tell me it's democratic. Becky is calling from Midlothian. Hi, Becky, how are you?
Oh, hi, Nigel. All the better for speaking to you. I'm one of the few UKIP voters in Scotland. So,
right.
I absolutely agree with everything that you've said today. I feel extremely depressed when I see Theresa May coming back yet again with absolutely zilch, nothing. And what really scares me is all these people wanting a second, well, they say a people's vote, second referendum.
Well, we had the people's vote, in my view, yeah. Yeah, well, they'll be rallying on Saturday, Becky. There'll be a people's vote, as they call it, march in London this Saturday. Becky, do you think there's a chance we can save Brexit if we change the skipper?
Oh, gosh, yeah, she has got to go.
Right, lovely. Becky, I'm going to leave it at that. She has got to go, says Becky in Midlothian. What does Vicky in Brighton make of today's developments? Good evening.
I'm absolutely fuming. I've voted Conservative since I was 18. I'm completely and utterly let down. It's absolutely outrageous. And in fact, I did a quick search on internet to email the Prime Minister. And it says here, please use the form below to email the Prime Minister's office. All emails are read, and we will do our best to ensure you receive a response. And what I suggest, national radio station, that's exactly what people do. And let her office be absolutely thousands and thousands of emails. And let her really know what people
Right, well, do you know what, Vicky? I think whatever method people use, I think it's really important at this time that people let their MPs and the leaders of parties know how they feel. Because the 17.4 million of us voted for a fundamental change. We voted to become an independent country. And, Vicky, they're trying to deny us it, aren't they?
Completely. It's disgusting, Nigel. I can't tell you how angry I am about it.
No, I think
we're the little people and we don't matter.
I think I'm picking that up down the line. Vicky, thank you for that. I'm going to go to a new caller from Plymouth called Carol. Good evening, Carol.
Hello, Nigel. The reason I'm ringing is I am on your side. I'm a Brexiteer, but I think whenever it comes up about why people like Boris Johnson haven't really gone for it with the trying to be a new leader.
Yeah.
The reason they haven't is it's not just a question of getting all the letters in. Once the letters go in, if Theresa May resists, which she has already said she would on many occasions, then there would be a vote between, I think, all the Conservative MPs, and there's no way the Brexiteers are going to get half of them. And the worst thing is that if they don't get half of them, they can't, for the next year, challenge her again.
Carol, you're absolutely right to say that. And at the moment, it looks like Theresa May would still command a majority. Mind you, Mrs. Thatcher back in 1990 commanded a majority, but still felt that the tide was ebbing and really the time had come to go. Carol, I would put this to you. Isn't it better? You know, if you believe the words of that letter signed yesterday by David Davis and Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson, if you believe the strong words they've used about this being a terrible thing for our nation, wouldn't it be better to take the risk and lose than never to try to get Brexit back on track?
She's gone.
We've lost her. We've lost her. Oh, well, I was very much hoping to get Carol's answer to that, and I'm afraid I haven't got it. Theresa May is there because none of the Tory MPs had the guts to sort the Brexit problem out. I never liked Mrs May, but I do think she's being treated badly. Well, she certainly had a tough card to play. I absolutely grant you that, but she hasn't done it very, very well. I've got time for one quick caller, Victoria, who's calling from South Hampstead. Hi, Victoria.
Hi, I'm just confused because you say, OK, let's drag it on, kick the can down the road. It comes to the next election. And so how are they able to overrule Brexit? I don't understand how they're able to say, OK, let's do it.
Well, because, Victoria, we're not actually leaving. We're due on this current trajectory to stay part of the customs union. I also suspect they'll try and suspend Article 50 as well. We have a government, we have a leader doing their best not to give us Brexit. And I'm not being paranoid about it. Every single summit I come to, the situation gets worse. I'm sorry, Victoria, I'm out of time. I'm going to be back with you on Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Tonight at 10, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much. Coming up on the programme at 8 o'clock, it's